It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 30, looking at the players of the 2025 Gold Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Canada. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 30 on the players of the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. This episode covers Canada's players. I'm very excited to be doing this because this episode we come out of Canada, from Edmonton, Canada, and so I have a more intimate knowledge of this team than I do most teams. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. Series 21 to 27 dealt with the World Cup, or with the World Cup 2026 qualifying. Series 21, for example, is covering the Asian region, and we actually did do a preview of the preliminary round there. We were hoping to do more previewing for World Cup 2026, but life got busy, and we still have hopes of covering it, but now we'll have to do it mostly through reviews. So the past, present, and future mediacast that we produced in the spring of 2024 is not as outdated as it might seem. It does outline the World Cup 2026 qualifying procedures in each region, and we will add a link to that mediacast in the show notes. And although the dates won't be the same as in there, we still at least hope to review those qualifying campaigns. So we'll come back to the World Cup 2026 qualifying after our current focus, which is the 2025 Gold Cup here, and this episode on Canada's players. So we're doing this media cast in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and the likelihood of the players making it to the final squad. We examined the participation of the players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors, and categorized them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, seemingly off the squad, and then kind of almost certainly off the squad. We'll go into more details on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps even just the names of players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected, probably in early June. At that time, we'll go back over the list we create here and see who made it and who didn't. Our focus there will be more on the starters. We won't cover that much in Part 1 here. And in Part 2, we'll also cover things like updating injuries and surprise selections and non-selections. So this episode has 3 sections. Section 1, where we look at some general information on the team. Section 2, where we cover the main candidates in each position. And Section 3, where we summarize and conclude, especially focusing on injuries to keep an eye on. Okay, let's begin then with Section 1 and some general information on the team. So we have the category of retirements on the YouTube visual here, but we might actually change that to just big names who are no longer on the squad, because a lot of them are still playing club soccer, and it's not out of the question that they will return to the team. Anyway, first of all, we have Milan Borjan. He had 81 caps for Canada since 2011, but last appeared in just after the 2023 Gold Cup in November of 2023. So Milan Borjan out of the picture here. Secondly, central defender Stephen Vittoria, 46 caps and 5 goals for Canada since 2016, a mainstay in the defence over the years, but last appearing also in November of 2023. And finally, Lucas Cavallini, 41 caps and 18 goals for the national team since 2012. And he last appeared in the 2023 Gold Cup. So again, not out of the question that they will return, but we wave farewell effectively here. Let's take a look at recent games for Canada. So we'll go back to the 2023 Gold Cup here, and 4 games in there. They only reached the quarterfinals. That was in June of 2023. Sorry, my graphics are a little slow here. In June of 2023. Most teams in the CONCACAF region actually played in the 2023-24 Nations League group stage in the fall of 2023. Canada did not have to do that because they were one of the top teams kind of given a bye right to the quarterfinals in November. But before those quarterfinals, they did play a friendly in October of 2023. We then have the 2023 Nations League quarterfinals, and Canada won their game, so moved on to the finals in March of 2024. After that is the Copa America focus. So there were yes, there were a couple of friendlies there with France and Netherlands, so fairly big teams there. And those friendlies were right at the beginning of June 2024, and the Cup itself was in June, also in June of that year. Canada did very well in that tournament, reaching the 3rd place match. So playing 6 games there. Once again, they were not required to play in the Nations League group stage in the fall of 2024. So instead played some friendlies there, 3 friendlies in the fall of 2024. And they were granted a bye to the 2024 Nations League finals. Once again, they won the quarterfinal in November and then moved on to the finals in March of 2025. So those 2 games in March of 2025 were the most recent games. We'll actually insert here, going back to just before the pre-Copa America friendlies, that they got a new manager. The old manager was fired after the 2023 Gold Cup, and there was an interim manager during that period until May of 2024. So just before the pre-Copa America friendlies, the new manager coming in there. So we will see some changes in the formations and in the players being used if you keep a close eye on it. Many positions, players were not changed. But especially the formations differed, and that's what we're moving on to next. So let's take a look at the formations for Canada over this period. So we're looking at 25 games, or sorry, 23 games for Canada. So I won't go into too much detail because they used a lot of formations, 7 different formations, and 4 of those formations were used just once. So I'm going to actually start with a 3-5-2 formation. It's a bit of an odd formation, but it was the one they used in 3 of the 4 games of the Gold Cup. And I believe they used it once again after that, making it 17% of the games. But that was early in the period, and when the new manager came in, it was these 2 formations. So it was a 4-4-2 in 35% of the games and a 4-2-3-1 in 30% of the games. Then, as I said, in 4 games, a formation was used that was only used once. We won't go into detail on that, but let's analyze this and see what we have. So about 65% of the time, we're looking at a 4-man back line. That's 2 central defenders with a left back and a right back. But in 17% of the games, or actually a bit more than that, because 2 other games used a 3-man back line. And that will have the wingers pushing up to the middle. Also, we see, especially if I had added the 4 single formation games. We see much variation in the midfield, sometimes a two-line midfield, sometimes a one-line midfield, as in the 3-5-2 formation. So very hard actually for Canada in this period to separate defensive, central, and even attacking midfielders. They're all kind of jumbled in the middle there. The other thing we'll note is that about 50% of the time it is a two-man forward line, and then 50% of the time a one-man forward line. So that's as much as we'll say about that, but it'll come up in part 2 quite a bit. Let's finish section 1 here by looking at Canada's upcoming games. So while most of CONCACAF is playing the second set of World Cup qualifiers, Canada receives a bye there as well. And so have just warm-up friendlies. Both of them are in Toronto, Canada. Sadly, on the other side of the country from where I am. And those are on June 7th against Ukraine and June 10th against Ivory Coast. So those are the two warm-up games. Hopefully we can... well, we may do part 2 before that, but I always like looking at the games to see if it gives any indication as to when the or what the who the starters will be. So we'll try to make that work, but those games may come too late. Anyway, let's go on to section 2. We are finished section 1, and section 2 is our main part of the media cast, where we're looking at the players. So we begin with the managers, and we'll throw out a couple of names first and then talk about them. So current manager is Jesse Marsch, and there was a caretaker manager or an interim manager, Mauro Biello, before he came in. But effectively, Jesse Marsch replaced John Herdman. So we'll only look at the bio of Jesse Marsch in this case. So with the Canada national team since May of 2024, he was manager of Leeds United in England before that, and Leipzig in Germany before that. So a fairly good resume in terms of club. He was a player himself. I believe he had 2 caps for the USA national team from 2001 to around 2006. But Jesse Marsch, probably known more as a manager than as a player. Let's summarize the position then, or tell you the history of what has happened over the last little while. So John Herdman was the manager from 2018. He guided them most notably to and through the 2022 World Cup. The qualification run for that, perhaps the most memorable part of his tenure. He did a lot, Herdman, to build Canada's team and their self-belief. So I was actually surprised when he was let go in September of 2023. But Canadian reporters were not that surprised. Most were grateful for what he had done, but some respectable reporters were saying it was time for him to leave. So whatever the story is behind that, we won't get into, but he was replaced by Mauro Biello, who was Herdman's assistant manager throughout the period, throughout Herdman's tenure. In fact, Biello still manager of the under-23 team, and he has been since 2018. He was the caretaker manager then from September 2023, so after the Gold Cup that year. And Biello guided them to 3rd place in the CONCACAF Nations League and to the 2024 Copa America. Well, basically winning the quarterfinal of the Nations League earned them their position in the 2024 Copa America. But shortly before the tournament began, in fact, just before the 2 pre-tournament friendlies, Jesse Marsch came in May of 2023 and started off fabulously by leading them to 3rd place in the tournament among South American teams, where most of the CONCACAF teams didn't pass the group stage, America and US most notably. So Canada looking great in that tournament. And that is our look at the managers. Let's move on to the next section, goalkeepers. And we'll begin just by listing the names and their level of likelihood, and then go back over them. So we have two, or a definite candidate in Dane St. Clair. A likely candidate, although I would really say definite, but Maxime Crepeau, we have at the likely level here. We have Tom McGill, the first of a couple of possible candidates here. The second is Jonathan Sirois. And then at the level below that, we're just going to give whatever biographical information we'll give as we go, and then focus on the more likely players. So we have possible but unlikely James Pantemis, and he last appeared for the national team in the 2022 World Cup, although he was selected for a preliminary squad for the 2025 Nations League finals. So not completely off the squad, Pantemis. He doesn't have any caps for Canada, but has been around for a long time. And then the player we gave tribute to in part one, Milan Borjan, and we'll say he is seemingly off the squad, last appearing in November 2023. Let's go back and look at the candidates that we're expecting to see then. The first is Dane St. Clair, and he is 28 years old. Now, I should say right here and now that we will be a year off if the player was born from January to May, just because it's difficult to write down the actual date for each and every player. So we'll do that when we get to the Cup. But for now, we'll have to accept perhaps being a year off on their age. 28 years old, Dane St. Clair, 11 caps and no goals since 2021, and he plays for Minnesota United in the USA since 2019, but he was loaned out a couple of times there early in that period with Minnesota United. Prior to that, he was with New York Red Bulls under 23 team. Dane St. Clair has been through several cups, the 2021 and 23 Gold Cups, and the 2022 World Cup and Copa America in 2024. So has been in the last four tournaments, got a starting position in the 2023 Gold Cup games 3 and 4 there, but otherwise has been a backup. Dane St. Clair started 7, including the last 4 of their 16 games. That'll come up in the narrative. And he was on the bench for all 9 others. So Dane St. Clair, a definite candidate here. Maxime Crepeau is the likely candidate. He is 29 years old. Sorry, make that 31 years old. And he has, Crepeau has 24 caps since 2016 for Canada. He played with Portland Timbers in the USA since 2024 and was with Los Angeles FC for a couple of years before that. And he was with Vancouver until 2022 and other Canadian teams before that. Crepeau has been around since the 2017 Gold Cup, playing in all tournaments. However, he was injured for both the 2022 World Cup and the 2023 Gold Cup. So he missed those tournaments due to injury. He was the starting keeper in the 2024 Copa America, and he started 9 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, Crepeau, and he was on the bench for 6. And not selected for 1 match, and that was the last match. We don't know if that's significant. It probably isn't. So a couple of reasons we put Crepeau as a likely candidate. One of them being that he seems to have lost his starting position since the 2024 Copa America. Okay, let's look at the 2 possible candidates. Tom McGill is 25 years old, but has no caps for the national team He plays for Brighton in England, or at least is on their roster since 2018. So been with them for a long time, but has been loaned out quite a bit by Brighton to all sorts of smaller teams in England. Most recently, Milton Keynes Dons in England. All of those clubs are in England. He was with Brighton's youth team as well. He was a backup keeper in the 2023 Gold Cup and the 2024 Copa America. Tom McGill has not started any of their 16 games from the start of 2024, but he was on the bench for 9 and not selected for 7. So a possible candidate, Tom McGill, probably a little bit higher because they don't really see many other goalkeepers on the radar here. The second possible candidate is Jonathan Sirois. Sirois, it's a difficult name, Sirois. Sirois is 24 years old, also like McGill, no caps for the national team, and he plays with CF Montreal in Canada since 2020. He was unexpectedly selected for the Gold Cup preliminary squad in 2023, but didn't make the cut there, and also was not part of the 2024 Copa America squad. His first appearance on the bench was in March of 2024. Didn't start any games, but was on the bench for 6 since the start of 2024 and not selected for 10 others, including the last 2 matches. So Jonathan Sirois, a possible candidate. All right, that is it for goalkeepers, and we move on to the defense. We do have a category for versatile defenders, and we actually could put a couple of players in there. In fact, we're gonna. But let's talk about the structure of the defense first. Usually it is a 4-man backline with 2 central defenders and a left and right back. We do see a 3-man central defense in a quarter of the game, so 25% of the games, or 1 in 4. We will see a 3-man central defense, and that means the defenders push up to become wingers, and those wingers could be the defenders, or they could be more attacking players stepping in. Okay, but we do have a versatile defender because he's kind of all over the field, and it is Richard Larrea, and he is a definite candidate. However, he is an injury concern, and we'll talk about that. Well, we'll mention it now and then talk about it in section 3 at the end. He's been out with a muscle tear since early March 2025 up until the present. So we will have to see. We'll talk about it more in part 3. Section 3, good Lord. Okay, Richard Larrea is actually coded as a right winger and secondarily as a right defender, and that's probably true. He's usually on the right side and often pushing up into a winger role, but we really see him all over the field. We'll see him in left defense also here. I believe he plays 1 game in central defense as well. So it's sensible to mention his name first because it'll keep popping up. Richard Larrea is 30 years old with 60 caps for the national team and 1 goal since 2019. A bit surprising he only has the 1 goal, but there it is. He's with Toronto FC in Canada, his 3rd stint with them, actually, that 3rd stint since 2024. He was with Nottingham Forest in England from 2022 to 2024. Didn't really get on the field for them and was actually loaned out by them to both Toronto and to Vancouver, and also played in the USA earlier in his career. Richard Larrea, part of the team since the 2021 Gold Cup. In fact, he has not missed a tournament there, 4 tournaments since the 2021 Gold Cup, and Even though a couple of those were kind of B team tournaments like the 2023 Gold Cup, he was there nonetheless. Richard Larea has started 9 of their 16 games since the start of 2024. He subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 1. Struggling with injuries a bit, he was out for 3 games with injuries, and that includes the last 2 matches. So he is a definite candidate, but the injury risk hanging over him will be something to keep an eye on. All right, that is Richard Larea, a definite candidate. Now we move on to central defence and introduce the candidates. So we have firstly a definite candidate, Moise Bombito, and also a definite candidate, Derek Cornelius. At the likely level, we have Kamal Miller, and also, though rarely a starter, Joel Waterman. Actually, starting more than him is possible candidate Luc de Fougerolles and also Jamie Knight-Labelle, both of those possible candidates. And then the rest we'll kind of deal with as we go. Possible but unlikely, we have Kyle Hebert. Kyle Hebert last appearing in the on the bench in the 2024 Copa America, but not being called up since then. We have Lucas McNaughton. Lucas McNaughton was selected for the preliminary squad for the 2025 Nations League finals, but otherwise last appeared for the national team on the bench in November 2022. We have Zach McGraw, who did make an appearance in the 2023 Gold Cup, and but was not called up since then, but also one of the players on the preliminary squad for the recent Nations League games. So Zach McGraw still in the picture. A little less so in the picture and seemingly off the squad is Scott Kennedy. Last appeared in the 2023 Gold Cup, and Stephen Vittoria, who we celebrated in part 1 as a veteran of the team. Okay, let's go back and look at the candidates. So again, usually 2, but sometimes 3 central defenders. Definite candidate Moise Bombito is 25 years old with 19 caps and 1 goal for Canada since 2023. And he plays for Nice in France since 2024, was with the Colorado Rapids in the USA before that, and mostly USA teams, including college teams. But yeah, between Canada and the US. Bombito also holds citizenship for Congo DR, but we're certainly glad that he chose Canada. And his first tournament was the 2023 Gold Cup. He started all the games there and actually was the only player to start and finish all 6 games in the 2024 Copa America. Bombito continues to be a starter, a main starter for Canada with 15 of the 16 games since the beginning of 2024 that he started, and he was on the bench for the one other. So Moise Bombito, you can't get much more of a definite candidate than that. The other definite candidate is Derek Cornelius. He's 28 years old and has 32 caps for Canada since 2018. And he has recently, well, not so recently, in 2024, moved to Marseille in France. And was with Malmo in Sweden before that, and then Vancouver Whitecaps in Canada from 2019 to 2022. He also played in Germany, including a youth club in Germany there. His first tournament, Derek Cornelius, was the 2019 Gold Cup. He was a starter in that cup, but he didn't appear in the 2021 Gold Cup. He was kind of off the team for a little while, but he did come back and was on the bench in the 2023 2022 World Cup squad. Also a starter in the 2024 Copa America squad. Derek Cornelius has started 12 of their 16 games since the start of 2024, as well as subbing in for one, on the bench for one, and injured for two. So always called up, Derek Cornelius, and usually starting as well. Okay, the first of the two likely candidates is Kamal Miller. Kamal Miller is 28 years old and has 47 caps for Canada since 2019. He's been with the Portland Timbers in the USA since 2024 and was with Inter Miami in 2023. So mostly American clubs, but a few Canadian involvements too. Kamal Miller's first tournament was the 2019 Gold Cup, and he hasn't missed any of the five since. So 5 tournaments in a row for Kamal Miller. He was a starter in the World Cup and the 2023 Gold Cup, but has been kind of relegated to a backup player for the 2024 Copa America. He subbed into 2 of the 6 games there, and he has started only 2 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, but he has subbed in for 4 and been on the bench for 7. Just 3 matches that he was not selected for, but that does include the last 2 matches. Nevertheless, we consider Kamal Miller a likely candidate for this squad. The other likely candidate is Joel Waterman. He is 29 years old, but only 6 caps for the national team since 2022. So a late joiner and by no means a starter is Joel Waterman. He plays for CF Montreal in Canada since 2020 and Cavalry FC in Canada before that. He's a Calgary guy, so from the same province that you're hearing me from. Waterman's first tournament was the 2022 Gold Cup. He was on the roster for that squad. Didn't see any action there, and usually doesn't. Not part of the 2023 Gold Cup. Sorry, I think I said 2022 Gold Cup there, but it was the World Cup that he was on the squad for, but seeing no action. Not part of the 2023 Gold Cup, but selected for the 2024 Copa America. Didn't see any action there either. He was off the squad prior to that for 15 months prior to March 2024 when he came back. So from that time, he has started 2 of their 16 games, subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 9. So only 3 matches that Waterman has not been selected for, but that kind of describes his career for Canada, that he's, around, but rarely starts. Okay, the first of the possible candidates is Luc de Fougerolles, and he is a very young fellow, 20 years old, and 2 caps for Canada since 2024. He's on the roster for Fulham in England since 2023. Born in England is Fougerolles, and was with Fulham's youth club for 10 years from 2013 to 2023. So he was selected for the 2024 Copa America. He just appeared in 1 game there. That was game 6, which was a partial B team game. And he started that game actually and was subbed out 67 minutes in. Over the period, that was the only game he started from the start of 2024, but he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 7, but not selected for 5 matches. However, that includes the last 4 matches, so that kind of bumped him down a notch for us. Luc de Fougerolles, a possible candidate here. The other possible candidate, Jamie Knight-Lebel, is 21 years old and has 1 cap for Canada since 2024. He plays for Bristol City in England, not far from where I was born, so I'm feeling a lot of connections here. Since 2023, and has been on loan to Crewe Alexander in England, in Wales, in fact, since 2024. So Jamie Knight-Labelle got his first appearance on the bench for Canada in October of 2024. He hadn't started any of the remaining 5 games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 4 others. So being called up quite regularly recently, and effectively replacing Luc de Fougerolles in a bench capacity. So we'll actually move him ahead because he does seem a bit more likely at this point. Okay, well, we've done all the players below that. So that's our business here. And let's go to the left back position. So I'll just talk about the position briefly. In 25% of the games, when it's a 3-man back line, we see this position pushing up to become wingers. So it could be a defensive player or an offensive player in that winger role. Okay, so that's only, I think I said 25%. Here I have 20%. Anyway, it's 1 in 4 or 5 games there. Okay, let's look at the candidates here. We actually do have Alphonso Davies. For Canada, he usually plays more of an attacking role, but in this period and under the new manager has kind of moved back to the defense. Alphonso Davies, well, we're going to put him as a definite candidate here, but in fact, he won't be at the Cup because of an injury, which we'll talk about in section 3. But Alphonso Davies out of the Cup, so we won't. Oh, well, we will introduce him because we just like talking about him here in Canada. Also, a narrative of injury around our next candidate, just at the possible level, but Sam Adekugbe. Adekugbe struggling with injury over this period. We'll talk about it when we introduce him there. Zorhan Bassong is the other possible candidate. And then we have a player seemingly off the squad, Raheem Edwards. So Raheem Edwards last appeared in November 2022, but again, another of those players who was on the preliminary squad the preliminary roster for the 2025 Nations League finals game. So not out of the picture completely, but that's as much as we'll say about him unless he's named to the final squad. Let's go back and look at the candidates here. Alphonso Davies. I'll give details on the injury lately, but in section 3. But Alphonso Davies, 25 years old with 59 caps and 15 goals, a huge player for Canada since 2017. He's with Bayern Munich still in Germany since 2019 and was with Vancouver Whitecaps before that. And he has, actually not been part of all the tournaments since his first in 2017. He missed both the 2021 and 2023 Gold Cups. And that's as much as we'll say. I don't want to get into the weeds too much here. Alphonso Davies did start 13 of the 16 games from the start of 2024, subbed in for 1 and not selected for 2 others. And okay, I might as well get into his injury here, even though I'll be repeating this in section 3. Just listeners will probably expect to hear it when we do his bio here. Alphonso Davies then out with a torn muscle fiber injury in late January to mid-February, but he did play for Canada in the March games. In fact, he wasn't affected by his injuries in his participation for Canada during this period. But in the game against USA, that's the third place match, 12 minutes in, he suffered an injury and was sent back to Bayern Munich with a cruciate ligament tear and has been out of action since. Bayern Munich was very upset about that, especially because they considered that third place game to be not an important match. Canadians may differ. Playing USA during this time of conflict with the USA, we considered it a fairly important match. It's not important in the grand scheme of things, but anyway, that was the situation. So Bayern Munich quite upset at him getting injured in that game, and he is not expected back until September 30th. So he is out of the tournament. Again, I'm going to repeat all of that in part 3. So another Gold Cup that Davies will not be part of, unfortunately. Okay, that is Alphonso Davies, a definite candidate. We also have two possible candidates here. The first is Sam Adekugbe, and he is 30 years old with 42 caps and 1 goal for Canada since 2015. So one of the longer standing players, although he has not been around recently because of an injury that we'll talk about soon. Adekugbe was born in England, eligible to play for England, Canada, and Nigeria. Fortunately, chose Canada. Was on the preliminary squad at Adekugbe for the 2015 Gold Cup. Didn't make the cut there, but did in 2017. He was on the squad, but otherwise, the only tournament over the last 5 that he has made was the World Cup in 2022, where he subbed into 2 games, 2 of the 3 games there. But injured for the 2024 Copa America there. He has not then started any of their 16 games over the since the start of 2024. He was on the bench for 4, but he was out with 3 separate injuries for 10 matches, including the last 2 matches, and then 2 matches that he was not selected for. So the story of Sam Adekugbe is his injury over the last period. So he was out with a knee and a calf injury for most of 2024, but he did return to the bench in the fall of 2024, yet he didn't start any of those games. March 2025, though, found him again out with a hamstring injury, although relatively short, and he is playing for his club again, something we'll go over also in part 3. So Sam Adekugbe, perhaps a candidate. I don't think I named his club. So club-wise, he is with the Vancouver Whitecaps in his second stint with them since 2023. And was with Hatayspor in Turkey from 2021 to 23. In fact, he was loaned to the bigger Galatasaray in Turkey there, and has played for quite a few teams, Sam Adekugbe. So we do hope he'll be back, but currently just a possible candidate. The other possible candidate, Zorhan Basong, is 26 years old with 2 caps for Canada since 2020. And he plays for Sporting Kansas City in the USA since 2024. He played for a couple of clubs in Romania before that. He hasn't been selected for any tournaments. In fact, he earned 2 caps in 2020. Those were his only appearances for Canada, but then he returned after a more than 5-year absence in March 2025. And he didn't start either of the 2 remaining games, but he was on the bench for both, and in fact was a replacement for the injured Richard Larea. But at least getting his foot in the door, Zorhan Basong, and we may hear more of him. We make him a possible candidate because that's very recent engagement with the team, so we don't know where that will lead. Okay, that is it for left backs. No, we gotta do the right back position, as we will see. But let's look at the candidates. So we have a definite candidate in Alistair Johnson, and that's it. And then we have a possible but unlikely candidate in Zachary Brock-Guillard, who's been around for a long time, but I'll dispense with him here since he's at the unlikely level. Brock-Guillard last appeared for the national team in the 2023 Gold Cup, but yet another of the players selected for the preliminary squad for the 2025 Nations League finals. It seems everyone was selected for that. I was selected. Okay, I wasn't selected, but it seems like every player who's ever played for Canada was selected for that preliminary squad. It must have been about 150 players. Anyway, Brock-Guillard has been around for quite a while, but is seemingly off the squad now. We'll get more details on him if he comes back into the picture. Also possible but unlikely is Dominic Zator. Last appeared I'm not sure what the date was, but he has not been selected for the last 13 matches, Dominic Zator. And finally, Shaquille Marshall Rutti, also possible but unlikely. He actually has yet to earn his first appearance for the national team, but he was unexpectedly on the preliminary roster for the 2023 Gold Cup, so probably a bit further off the team than Brockyard and Zator. Okay, let's go back. We only have one candidate to look at, and what a candidate it is. He is fabulous, Alistair Johnson. I just want to tell a little story. He and I think some of the other players for Canada, but I especially remember Johnson doing it. So we invited Mexico up to Canada when we were playing them in 2022 World Cup qualifying, and strategically invited them up here to Edmonton, which is a bit north in Canada. Because it was freezing cold. It was about -10. So we thought that would give us advantage over Mexico. That's why they scheduled the game. Anyway, Alistair Johnson and others, I'm sure, came out in the kind of shirt I'm wearing, just short sleeves, kind of a summer soccer outfit. So a bit of psychological terror there by Alistair Johnson. We love the guy. Okay, Alistair Johnson is 27 years old and he has 53 caps and 1 goal for Canada since 2021. He's played with Celtic in Scotland since 2023 and was with Nashville in the USA in 2020 and 2021. And with CF Montreal in between, but is doing very well in Scotland there. And he's been part of every tournament since the 2021 Gold Cup, except the 2023 Gold Cup, where a lot of the top players didn't join. In his case, though, an ankle injury and surgery made his participation impossible, even if he had wanted to play. But all 6 games, or he's a starter, starts all the games for Canada, and started 12 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, subbed in for 2 and was not selected for 2 others. So Alistair Johnson, I mean, when we look here with no other candidates, it would be a real disaster to lose him for the Cup. So we really should get some backup over on this side. Well, we do have backup in Richard Larea, who is secondarily coded as a right back. Okay, that is it for the defense, and we move on to the midfield. So before we begin, let's talk about the midfield in general, the formation. So there were some odd formations used in the period, and generally it's not worth delving into the formations in too much detail here. Suffice to say that it's sometimes a 2-man or a 2-line midfield, like in the 4-2-3-1 formation, so defensive and central or offensive midfielders, and sometimes a 1-line, as in a 3-5-2 formation. So as a result, the separation between defensive midfielders and central midfielders is quite fluid, and even attacking midfielders may be part of the single line midfield. So let's go to the players, and actually we're going to begin with the versatile midfielder here, introducing him, and it is Jonathan Osorio, who we have as a likely candidate. He's played various positions in the midfield in this period, so we'll talk about him. Jonathan Osorio is 33 years old now, 85 caps and 9 goals for the national team since 2013, so a real veteran for the club. A veteran also for the national team, I should say. A veteran also for his club. I got ahead of myself a bit there. Osorio has been with Toronto FC in Canada since 2013, and he's been a part of every cup since the 2013 Gold Cup. So all tournaments since then he's been part of. In the recent period, he has started 5 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, as well as subbing in for 8 and on the bench for 2. So just 1 match that Osorio was not selected for. So a likely candidate here, not so much a starter. but we'll get to that in part 2. And Jonathan Osorio, expect his name to come up throughout here. Let's move on to defensive midfielders. And we begin with Stephen Eustachio as a definite candidate. We'll just name the candidates first. We also have a likely candidate in Nico Sigur, and then a possible candidate in Samuel Piet, and then seemingly off the squad, Liam Fraser is the last of our candidates here. And let's take a look at these players. So Stephen Eustachio is 29 years old. He has 49 caps and 4 goals for Canada since 2019, and he's been with Porto in Portugal since 2022. Has mostly played for Portuguese teams, but was with Cruz Azul in Mexico from 2019 to 2021. And he's been part of tournaments since the 2021 Gold Cup there, an important player for Canada, but was not part of the mostly B team that played in the 2023 Gold Cup. Eustachio has started 14 of their 16 games over the recent period from the start of 2024, and subbed in for one and was on the bench for the other. So always called up and almost always a starter, Stephen Eustachio. Next, we have Nico Sigur, and he is 22 years old, just 3 caps for Canada since 2024. Actually was... on the Croatian squad. He was named to the 9-man standby squad for Croatia. A bit of a surprise that he was named for, because he really hadn't shown up for them before then. And he does play in Croatia with Hajduk Split since 2023, but he did play for the York Lions University team in Canada in 2021. And Sigur was born in Canada and switched his allegiance to Canada in August of 2024. So he got his first appearance on the bench in September 2024, didn't start any of their remaining 7 games, but was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 4. So making good inroads into the team is likely candidate Nico Sigur. Samuel Piet is the possible candidate here. He is a real veteran with the team, 31 years old, 70 caps since 2012 for Canada, and has been with Montreal, CF Montreal, but it was called Montreal Impact when he started with them, since 2017. He has also played in Spain and Germany, Samuel Piet, and has been part of tournaments since the 2013 Gold Cup. Rarely a starter. He was actually in the 2013 Gold Cup a starter, and also in the 2017 Gold Cup, but really hasn't started any of the recent tournaments, has become more of a kind of a backup player for Canada. And he was injured for the 2023 Gold Cup. That was the only tournament that Piet missed. He has started none of their 16 games since the start of 2024, but he was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 9 matches. However, he has not been selected for the last 7 matches, so seems to be drifting off the team. And for this tournament, Samuel Piet is just a possible candidate. Okay, those are the only candidates for defensive midfield, but we're going to cover the central midfield. Also, the players coded as central midfielders before we summarize the position. And here we have a definite candidate in Ismail Kone, and also a definite candidate in Matthew Schwaniel. Then we jump all the way down to possible but unlikely, so we'll deal with these players as we go. The first is Harry Patton. And Harry Patton, another of those players selected for the 2025 Nations League Finals preliminary squad, but otherwise has not appeared for the team since October 2023. Nathan Dylan Saliba is the second possible but unlikely candidate. He has not started any games. He subbed in for two, was on the bench for one, and not selected for the last four matches. He's a young fellow, just 21 years old. We could put him at the possible level. I'm honestly not sure why. In preparing, we put him at the possible but unlikely, but we'll leave him there. For the time being. Okay, let's go to the seemingly off the squad, Mark Anthony Kaye. So Mark Anthony Kaye last appeared for the national team in November 2023. He's been drifting off the team quite a while. He was quite involved actually from 2017 Gold Cup and was selected for the 2022 World Cup, but has drifted off since then. And also seemingly off the squad, Victor Loturi, last appearing in the 2023 Gold Cup. That was a largely B team for Canada. So again, we'll give more details if those players come back into the picture. But let's take a look at the candidates we expect to be there, starting with Ismail Kone. He is 23 years old, but has amassed 28 caps and 3 goals for Canada since 2022. And he plays for Marseille in France since 2024, but is on loan to Reims in France since 2025. Prior to going to France, he was with Watford in England and CF Montreal before that in Canada. And Ismail Kone's first tournament was the 2022 World Cup. He was subbed into all 3 games there. Not part of the Gold Cup 2023 squad, but a starter in the 2024 Copa America. Started 4 of the 6 games there. And Kone has since started 10 of their 16 games from the beginning of 2024, as well as subbing in for 2 and being on the bench for 1, also injured for 1. So just 2 matches that Kone was not selected for. And that's why we have him as a definite candidate. The other is actually coded as a left midfielder, Matthew Choinière. And we have moved him to central midfield because frankly, the left and right midfielder doesn't really is not a factor for Canada in this period. I don't know how to say this in short terms. They do use the formation, but it's not Choinière who is always there. Okay, that's a bit of confusion there. Choinière is 26 years old and has 12 caps for Canada since 2023. He plays for Grasshoppers in Switzerland since 2024. He was also part of the CF Montreal team actually for 6 years and was with their youth team for 7 years before that, but has now moved over to Europe. So he was a consideration actually for the 2021 Gold Cup. He was on the preliminary squad, but didn't make the final cut and didn't make the 2 tournaments after that either. But finally, for the 2024 Copa America, he was selected and he just subbed into game 5 there and started game 6, which was a partial B team game. Choinière, though, has taken on a bigger role since, starting 6 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, as well as subbing in for 5. And he was on the bench for all 5 others, so consistently called up since the start of 2024. So Choinière is now a definite candidate, at least to be selected. We'll talk about starters in part 2. Okay, and we've quickly covered all the candidates below that because possible but unlikely is the next highest level. So we've covered all the main candidates, the defensive and central midfielders. Let's take a look at left and right midfielders. We'll talk briefly about them. I got a bit tongue-tied there when I tried to talk about them before. Actually, we don't have any candidates listed here. We do have players coded as left midfielders, but we've moved them around because they played in other positions. So we have Ahmed Ali coded as a left midfielder. We moved him to a right winger, a right attacker, and we'll talk about him soon. And then Matthew Choinière, who we just talked about, is also coded as a left midfielder, but we moved him to central midfield. And In fact, it's actually the versatile midfielder Jonathan Osorio in games where they have used three central midfielders. Osorio is usually playing on the left side of that. So we do have one candidate here to talk about on the right side, but he's at the possible but unlikely level, and that is Witherspoon. Sorry, just got to find my spot here. Um, yes, okay, David Witherspoon. I'm sorry, he's actually at the seemingly off the squad level, David Witherspoon. So we'll just say that he last appeared for the national team in the 2023 Gold Cup. All right, let's move on upfield then, and we look at attacking midfielders. So Soccer Files has kind of created its own category here. We've come to see this left and right attacking position as dependent on the formation. So it can be an attacking winger in a 4-4-2 formation, an attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or a left or right forward in a 4-3-3 formation. So we found that this works quite well. Although the coding that most of our sources use and that we have on the players are generally left wing or right wing for players in this category. Anyway, let's look at the candidates for left attacker. And we begin with, Alphonso Davies for Canada is pretty much in this category, but we've moved him to left back as he's played most of his games there during this period. So let's go to the next candidate, the definite candidate, Jacob Schaffelberg. And we also have Liam Miller as a definite candidate here, even though he is actually coded as a forward. We think that's wrong, and we'll probably change that once we get a bit more confirmation. At the possible level here is Junior Hoylett. And then we have at the possible but unlikely, Stephen Afrifa. So let's deal with these less likely candidates right away. He doesn't have any starts for Canada, Stephen Afrifa, and was not selected for the last 5 matches. So just kind of popped his head in and was subbed for 2 games, but really disappeared after that. We have seemingly off the squad, Luca Koleosho. He last appeared in September 2022. And then we have Jaden Nelson last appearing in the 2023 Gold Cup. So again, we'll give more details on those players if we find they're selected in part 2. Okay, let's go to the top and look at the candidates in a bit more detail. Jacob Schaffelberg is 26 years old with 27 caps and 6 goals, and he has been with the national team since 2020. Schaffelberg plays for Nashville in USA and was with Toronto FC before that. Its first tournament was the 2023 Gold Cup. He was actually on the preliminary squad as far back as the 2021 Gold Cup, not making the final cut there, but he has been part of the last tournament. And in fact, you can almost point to the day where he became a starter. That was in the 2024 Copa America. After subbing into games 1 and 2, he gained the starting position and really hasn't loosened his grip on it. So Jacob Schaffelberg started 8 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, also subbed in for 7 and not selected for 1 match. So a definite candidate to be selected to the squad. We have Liam Miller in the same category, but an injury may affect that. We'll talk about that after we introduce him here. As I said, coded as a forward, but we moved him to left attacker because he's played most of his games here. And he also is 26 years old, but he's been on the team longer than Schaffelberg. He is since 2018. and Miller has 35 caps and 1 goal. He plays for Hull in England and was with Basel in Switzerland before that. He's actually part of the Liverpool youth system. He did play for other youth teams before that, but he was on Liverpool's squad in England from 2019 to 21 and loaned out to a couple of clubs there. Liam Miller was part of the 2019 Gold Cup. He missed the tournament in 2021, but otherwise has been part of all 3 tournaments since the 2022 World Cup. He was the one who started on the left attacking position in the 2024 Copa America, but ceded his position to Jacob Schaffelberg. So Liam Miller has started 5 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, as well as subbing in for 6 and being on the bench for 1. But he was injured for the last 4 matches. So let's talk about that injury. Out with a cruciate ligament injury since way back in October 2024. However, he is expected to return in May 2025. That's towards the end of May. There, so it'll be a bit of a close call for Liam Miller. Otherwise, if healthy, we think he's a definite candidate. Let's move on to Junior Hoylett, and he's a real veteran for Canada. 35 years old now, though, with 66 caps and 17 goals since 2015. And we always like talking about Junior Hoylett because he played for Cardiff in the English League. That's where I grew up. He's with, I'm not sure if he's moved from Aberdeen in Scotland because my notes are a little unclear here. He was with Aberdeen in Scotland in 2024. He may be with Hibernians now. And prior to moving there, he was with the Vancouver Whitecaps in Canada. But as we said, a few teams in England, including Cardiff there. He actually, for the Gold Cup in 2011, was invited, but he declined the invitation. Not sure at that time which country he wanted to play for. By 2017, though, he had committed and was involved in the 2017 Gold Cup and every tournament since then, except for the 2024 Copa America, where he was injured, actually selected for the final squad, but injured before the tournament and replaced. So Junior Hoylett has become a substitute. He didn't start any of their 16 games from the start of 2024, but he was subbed in for 3, on the bench for 1, and injured for 8, and not selected for 4 others, including the last 2 matches. So 35 years old, he is drifting off the team. Okay, those are the main candidates. Let's move over to the right attacker side. And here too, we have Richard Laria. We've moved him to a versatile defender. That's mostly where he was. And when he does play right wing, I generally see him as a right back pushing up. But he is all over the field and actually does play, for example, as a right attacking midfielder sometimes. Nevertheless, we've dealt with Richard Laria's biography, but he does fit into this category as well. Also versatile, but we'll talk about it, is Ali Ahmed. So coded as a left midfielder, but we've moved him here to the right attack, and he is a definite candidate over here. Then we have Tajon Buchanan as a likely candidate. And that's all we have in terms of candidates. So let's take a look at Ali Ahmed. Like Richard Laria, he's very versatile. I've seen him play as a right defensive midfielder and even as a left back. He played once. Ali Ahmed is 25 years old with 14 caps and no goals for Canada since 2023 and plays for Vancouver Whitecaps in Canada, part of their youth system. His first tournament was the 2023 Gold Cup because that was kind of a B team brought to that cup. He started all 4 games there. But really, he's more of a substitute or a backup player and played that role in the Copa America 2024, subbing into 2 games there and starting game 6, the partial B team game. Ali Ahmed has started 8 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, subbing in for 2 and on the bench for 3, and not selected for 3 matches. But those were the first 3 matches of 2024. So not only has he become a regular selection, but he is becoming a bit more of a starter as well. That's Ali Ahmed, and the likely candidate is Tajon Buchanan. He is 26 years old with 45 caps and 4 goals for Canada since 2021, and he is on the roster of Inter Milan in Italy since 2024, but he is currently loaned out to Villarreal in Spain since 2025. So those are big clubs. He has moved up steadily. He was with Club Brugge in Belgium from 2021 to 2024, and New England Revolution in the USA before that. Tajon Buchanan, his first tournament was the Gold Cup in 2021, and he has played all tournaments as a starter in the World Cup 2022 as well. Didn't participate in Gold Cup 2023. That was a bit of a B team tournament, and started in the Copa America in 2024. He started game 1. He was actually on the bench coming in as a sub for games 2 and 3. And then after game 3, he broke his leg in training, and that ended his tournament. So Tajon Buchanan has started 5 of their 16 games from the start of 2024. He subbed in for 5, but he was injured for 6 other matches. He has recovered from that injury, though. Let's move on to central attacking midfield. And, well, we only have one candidate in here. That's Jonathan Osorio. And we've moved him to versatile midfielder because he's played almost every position in the midfield except his coded attacking midfield. I think, actually, I might be wrong there. I think he popped up once here. Anyway, that is it for the attacking midfielders. So we move on to our final position. The forwards, well, that includes 2 positions, secondary striker and forward, but we don't have anyone in the secondary striker category. So we move on to forwards. This used to be a very difficult position for Canada. We usually had good defenders and goalies and decent midfielders, but Canada's problem was not being able to find someone who could put the ball in the net. Now we're blessed with candidates, as you'll see here. And so as Canadians, we're very happy about that. So we're looking at formations with a 1 or 2-man forward line here. If it's a 3-man forward line, like a 4-3-3 formation, we consider the outside forwards to be left and right attackers, which we've covered in the previous section. So about 60% of the time, Canada uses 2 forwards in this period. Okay, so let us look at the candidates. So we have a definite candidate in Jonathan David. And also definite is Kyle Larin. These guys can put the ball in the net. We have Liam Miller coded as a forward, but we moved him to the left attacker. So our next candidate is also a definite, Tani Oluwaseyi there. We have no players coded as likely, but we have several possible candidates here. Theo Bair is the first, Daniel Jebison, Jason Russell-Rowe, and Promise Davis. So 4 candidates at the possible level. And then we have 6 candidates at the possible but unlikely level. So I think I'm just going to introduce them by name and then bring them back in part 2 if we find they're selected. So I won't give even any details on them. The first is Charles Andreas Bryn. Then we have Theo Corbeau, DeAndre Kerr, Ike Ugbo, Kwasi Poku, and Santiago Lopez. So basically, all of those have appeared for Canada during the period, but not recently. That's usually why players are in the possible but unlikely category. And then we have two players in seemingly off the squad. The first, Io Akinola, and then the player we talked about in section one to kind of honor him, but now off the team, Lucas Cavallini. So, wow, as I say, blessed with candidates. Let's go back and look at the main candidates. So, Jonathan David is 25 years old, 62 caps and a stunning 32 goals since 2018 for Canada. And he's been with Lille in France since 2020, was with Ghent in Belgium before that. His youth clubs, though, were mostly in Canada. Jonathan David's first tournament was the 2019 Gold Cup, but he wasn't part of the 2021 or 23 Gold Cups. He was a starter in the World Cup and in the Copa America in 2024. So over the past period, Jonathan David has started 14 of their 16 games and was subbed in for two others. So a most definite candidate, Jonathan David. The second definite candidate is Kyle Larin. He has 80 caps and 30 goals, also an impressive scoring record there. He's 30 years old now and has been with Canada since 2014. And he's currently with Mallorca in Spain since 2023. But he was a teammate of Tajon Buchanan when they were both at Club Brugge in Belgium. He was with them just for a year and actually loaned out to Real Valladolid during that period. He also played for Besiktas, one of the big teams in Turkey. That was from 2018 to 22. And Kyle Larin's first tournament for Canada was the 2015 Gold Cup. Excuse me, I just have to cough here. Yes, the 2015 Gold Cup, and he's played in all the tournaments except no, he has actually except the Gold Cup in 2023, which was mostly a B team. So Kyle Larin has started 13 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, as well as subbing in for two and on the bench for one other. So always selected and a definite candidate. The third definite candidate is Tani Oluwasei, and he's 25 years old. Been with Canada just since 2024 with 11 caps and one goal, and he plays for Minnesota United in the USA since 2022. So Oluwasei got his first tournament there in 2024 Copa America. And he is actually born in Nigeria, Oluwasei, and was eligible for Nigeria. So, but through his loyalties to Canada, which we're happy about. Oluwasei got his first appearance on the bench in June of 2024, just before the Copa America, and he started 3 of their remaining 15 games, as well as subbing in for 8 and on the bench for 4 others. So he too is always selected ever since his first appearance there. So those are the 3 definite candidates. Let's look at the possible candidates. Some interesting cases here. First is Theo Bair. He is 26 years old, but only 5 caps and 1 goal for Canada since 2020. He was actually off the team for 4 years. Bair is playing for Auxerre in France. Since 2024, was with a couple of teams in Scotland before that, and was selected actually for the 2021 Gold Cup preliminary squad, but didn't make the final cut. Then was kind of off the team for a while, but was selected for the squad in the 2024 Copa America. So he does have a tournament under his belt. Theo Bair has started none of their 16 games from the start of 2024, though, but he was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 9. and not selected for only 3 matches. However, that includes the last 2 matches, so that throws a bit of doubt onto whether he'll make this squad. Next, we have Daniel Jebbison. He is 22 years old with 1 cap for Canada since 2025, and he plays for Bournemouth in England, a Premier League team. And he was loaned to Watford for part of the season here, but he is back with Bournemouth now. He also played for Sheffield United in England from 2020 to 2024. So Daniel Jebbison was eligible to play for England, but Canada has been hoping he will throw his loyalties our way. He got his first cap for Canada in March 2025. Didn't start any of their remaining 2 games or any of their 2 games there, but he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1 other. But I'm not sure if the Nations League finals commits him to Canada. I'm not sure it's an official. I usually think kind of a tournament involvement is what's needed. So we'll have to see about Daniel Jebbison, but he's well coded as just a possible candidate here. Third possible candidate, Jason Russell-Rowe, is 23 years old with 7 caps for Canada and no goals since 2023. And Russell-Rowe plays for Columbus Crew in the USA since 2022. He was selected for the Gold Cup in 2023 and for the Copa America in 2024, but is not a starter. He has started none of their 16 games from the beginning of 2024, but he was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 6. However, not selected for 7 games, including the last 5 matches. So I really should very close to possible, but unlikely category there. The last candidate is Promise David. Promise David has no caps for Canada. He's 24 years old, and he, like Oluwase, is eligible for Nigeria. Promise David played for the Nigeria under-23 team. He was born in Canada. So another player who's kind of national allegiance, we're hoping that it will come Canada's way. David Promise plays for Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium since 2024. And he got his first appearance on the bench in March 2025. Didn't start either of those 2 games, but was on the bench for both of them. Okay, and yes, 6 possible but unlikely candidates, 2 seemingly off the squad who, it's not out of the question that they could return. So Canada doing well for forwards. Well, that brings us to the end of section 2, and now we move on to section 3, the kind of closing section. So we want to welcome new listeners to section 3 here. Because we're also releasing a short version of part 1 on Canada's players, which will just be made up of section 3. So new listeners, in the full version, we introduced the candidates and their likelihood of making the squad. And we also summarized who had been occupying each position over the recent period. So for those just listening to the short version, you can go to the full version if you want those details and the reasons for our predictions here. And for those who have listened, this is just a summary, but we do want to point out again that we're not making predictions as to who will be the starters. That will be the business of part 2. So let's go back over the list and summarize. We have Jesse March as our manager since May of 2024. So just before the Copa America, he came in, managed the 2 pre-Copa America friendlies, and has been manager since then. Goalkeepers, we have a definite candidate in Dane St. Clair, a likely candidate in Maxime Crepeau, and possible candidates Tom McGill and Jonathan Sirois. We're really not going to mention players below that level. We do have possible but unlikely and seemingly off the squad players, but unless we have a reason, we won't mention them. In this case, we do have a reason because we have basically retiring veteran Milan Borjan, who has been the goalie for Canada for quite a while, but now seems to be off the squad. For defenders, we created a category of versatile defenders, and we have Richard Larea in that. So he's kind of all over, not just the defense, but the field. And Richie Larea is a definite candidate, but an injury concern, which we'll talk about after this section. Central defenders, we have two definite candidates, Moise Bombito and Derek Cornelius. Two likely candidates in Kamal Miller and Joe Waterman, and then two possible candidates, Jamie Knight-Lebel and Luc de Fougerolles, and then actually 5 players in categories below that, which we will bring back into the picture if they make the final squad. But here too, we have basically retiring veteran Stephen Vittoria, which we want to mention. Okay, left backs. Alphonso Davies is in the left back position during this period. Well, he's a definite candidate. Of course, we would choose him, but he's an injury. Well, basically, he will be out because of injury. Again, something we'll cover in the next section. No candidates at the likely level for left back, but two possible candidates, Sam Adekugbe and Zorhan Basson. So a little thin over there, especially since Sam Adekugbe had a long injury himself. Over on the right, though, it's as clear as a bell. Alistair Johnson is the starter. The only concern there is that there are no backup players were he to get injured. So it would be out of position player, probably Richard Larea as the backup. Okay, and that is it for the defense. For midfielders, we also have a versatile midfielder. So we find Jonathan Osorio kind of all over the field in this period, and he is a likely candidate to make the final squad. Defensive midfielder, we have a definite candidate, Stephen Eustachio, and a likely candidate in Nico Segur. Also possible candidate, Samuel Piat. Central midfielders, two definite candidates there, Ismail Kone and Matthew Chaunier, but no categories at the no players at the likely or possible category. Left midfielders and right midfielders, we do have a couple of players coded as left midfielders, but we basically move them elsewhere because these positions are not used that much. So we move on to the attacking midfield, and we begin with the left attackers. And there we have Jacob Schaffelberg as a definite candidate, and Liam Miller, who would be a definite candidate. We have him in the definite category, but he's an injury concern also. And then in the possible category, Junior Hoylett. Over to the right attacking side of the field, we have definite candidate Ali Ahmed, actually coded as a left midfielder, but we think that's wrong, and we'll probably change that. But he is a versatile player, Ali Ahmed, definite candidate, and likely candidate, Tajon Buchanan there. Okay, let's go to central attackers. No one in that position, but the player or midfielder we talked about at the beginning, Jonathan Osorio, is actually coded as a central attacking midfielder. And then with forwards, holy cow, Canada is blessed with forwards, maybe for the first time in our history. And we have 3 definite candidates, Jonathan David, Kyle Larin, and Tani Oluwaseyi. We have no candidates at the likely level, but 3 candidates at the possible level. 4 candidates, Theo Bair, Daniel Jebison, Jason Russell-Rowe, and Promise David. And then beyond that, we have 6 players at the possible but unlikely level who we can probably bring in if needed. So that is a review of the candidates. Let's move on to our second order of business here, and that is a review of injuries. So we have Sam Adekugbe. He had been out with a knee and a calf injury for most of 2024. He actually did return to the bench in the fall of 2024, but March 2025 found him out again with a hamstring injury. Sam Adekugbe. However, it was relatively short, just from March 9th to April 20th, so that's pretty light for a hamstring injury, and he returned to play for his club from April 27th. So we are going to put Sam Adekugbe in the recovered from injury category and hope that he is recovered, because there's two players who plays left back who or also injury problems. Let us talk about the first of those. That is Alphonso Davies. Normally a more attacking player for Canada, but under the new manager Jesse March playing as a left back, possibly because Adekugbe is out injured. Alphonso Davies was out with a torn muscle fiber in late January to mid-February. However, he recovered in time to play in the March games for Canada, so in the semi-final and final. Not the final, but the third place match. In that third place match, 12 minutes in, he went down injured. That was against the USA, and his club, Bayern Munich, was pretty annoyed about it. It turned out he had a cruciate ligament tear, and he remains out of action until now. In fact, he's not expected back until September 30th. So Jonathan David is out of contention. Not Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, out of contention for this cup. Richard Larea, who also plays kind of as a left back when needed, is also an injury concern. He's out with a muscle tear since early March 2025 and remains injured up until this. We're recording this in May, and he has an unknown return date on him. So we don't know his status. We'll have to update it in part two. And finally, we have Liam Miller, coded as a forward, but we put him as a left attacker. He is out with a cruciate ligament injury since way back in October 2024. So a long-term injury there. However, he is expected to return in May 2025, but that's getting close to the cup. So we're going to say that's a close call, but we could put him in the expected back category there too. Okay, now let's our closing thoughts. Well, for Canada and the top teams, we are wondering if the top teams will be sending their best. In fact, when we were watching that third place match against USA in March, we heard the commentators make a comment about teams not sending their best players to the tournament. We can understand that in the sense that Canada and USA and Mexico have played a tournament every summer since 2021. I mean, almost every summer they play a tournament. So it's no surprise that sometimes these teams send a B team to the tournament to give their players a rest once in a while. And that's what happened to Canada in 2023 Gold Cup. But we kind of thought that they would not do that this time, because this is basically their last warm-up for the 2026 World Cup. USA, Canada, and Mexico have no qualifying campaign to kind of develop their team with, so we thought it would be this tournament. So we're not sure if the commentators will be right, but we hope teams will be using this opportunity to kind of hone their teams there. Okay, that is it. My closing thoughts. Let's do a preview for part two. So when the squad lists come out, we know the preliminary squad if they have one, and the final squad. We will go through the list that we created here and let you know which ones made it and which ones didn't. We'll particularly focus on any notable non-selections and any surprise inclusions. There's always a couple of new players who come out, so we'll let you know who they are. And we'll also do an update on injuries there. So there we have it. That is Canada for the 2025 Gold Cup, and we will see you for part 2. We would like to thank Future Bass for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. The title is called Alone.